All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special release day stream of DragonClash. My name is Mark Arona, and I'm the creator and developer behind the game. It's been a long journey to get to this point, and I'm excited to finally release the game to the public in Steam Early Access. DragonClash is available right now in the Steam store, so if you like what you see today and want to be one of the first to play, I'd love your support and encourage you to get involved in the community via the Steam forums. So what is DragonClash, as the intro movie plays? Let's see, it's a single-player card game of the strategic Dragon Combat. The game is set in a war-torn, modern-day world. After suffering centuries of war, pollution, and neglect, the dying spirit of Earth, known as Gaia, has called out to her last defenders in a desperate plea for life. Those defenders are, of course, the dragons, and they're tasked with restoring elemental harmony, but they're ultimately tainted by another mysterious being known as Oblivion, called the Great Father by the dragons. So now they battle not only humanity, but each other in an endless hunt for dragon eggs to satiate their hunger for power. How will you reshape the world? Alright. As I mentioned earlier, DragonClash is currently in early access, which means I'm still polishing, refining, and adding new content to the game. However, currently there are 2 decks available. The Red Breather. Red Breather is an explosive red dragon deck that uses brute force and a variety of melee and breath tactics, featuring attacks like Flame Tongue and Inferno Breath, as well as gifts such as Two Heads and Bloodlust. This red dragon is a threat from any range. There's also the Blue Adept. Blue Adept is a shifty blue dragon deck that uses combinations and a variety of crafty tactics to debilitate a foe, featuring attacks like Taunt and Frost Breath, as well as gifts such as Siphon Life and Cloud of Stupor. This blue dragon may just make an opponent weep for mercy. Let's see. So with those 2 decks, you'll be able to do quick matches against random AI opponents. As I mentioned, it is a single-player game, and those opponents will also be controlling either the Red Breather or Blue Adept decks. There's also a repeatable boss battle against a dragon called the Crone, and she pops up after every 3 wins across all decks. So if you win twice with Red Breather and 1 with Blue Adept, the Crone will come along and challenge you. If she ends up popping up during today's stream, I'll probably just concede the match in order not to spoil some of the boss-specific surprises in her match. Each dragon also has a lair. Let's see if I can show you one of those. So this is with a save file that's played a little bit. So my lair is currently level 2. My red lair, that is. As I said, there's 1 for each dragon. And each lair has 12 levels of improvements that you can achieve. And you get a new level for every 5 wins. So I'll actually, 1 more win, I'll get level 3 red dragon lair with my, since I have 14 wins with my red breather. Let's look at the blue adept's lair. I only have 10 wins with that, so I need 5 more to get to level 3 for her. But in addition to each layer, there are also 55 milestone badges and 15 achievements that you can grab just for playing. Now, milestones are something I'll be adding and tweaking throughout early access. Some of them are particularly hard to achieve, but that was intentional. I wanted to mix some progression-based badges, just ones you can earn just by playing. If you beat Corlock once, you get a badge. You beat him 10 times, you get a badge. You beat him 25 times, you get a badge. You hit with a certain rank attack, you get a badge. Those are a little easier to achieve. Some of the harder ones are still grayed out in my game. But these are something I'm going to be looking at throughout early access. If it turns out no one can achieve those, I can always pull back and make them a little easier to collect. But again, I just wanted to start off with a good mix. Let's see. Okay, so later, as I mentioned, this is early access, but later in early access, we'll have the Silver Channeler and Brown Mauler decks added to the mix. I'll be adding more dragons. There'll be more boss fights, because the Crone certainly isn't the only major personality in the DragonClash universe that your dragons can interact with. And there will be a story mode to tie everything together and highlight more of the lore behind the game. as other features and many rounds of polish probably. But part of the reason why it's in early access is I wanted to get the community involved. I want to hear your thoughts on what you like, what things might have tripped you up, what things you might like to see, and just with the community involvement and as well as my own observations and goals with the game, hopefully we can flush it out together. All right, let's see. Let's jump into a game. I'm going to go ahead and play Red Breather because I'm only one win away from a level 3 lair. So let's see if I can grab that. Now, before you jump into a game, I highly suggest you click this. Don't just mash the start button. Click the rules button first, because DragonClash is a card game, and there are a lot of perhaps mechanics you haven't seen before. It's at least give it a couple minutes just to kind of glance through, skim through it. There's a lot here. In the game, there are tutorial slides that will pop up at the beginning of certain phases to highlight certain card types, but those slides are not comprehensive. They're just kind of a very general overview of a mechanic. Give you a very brief. It's more meant as a reminder. There hopefully will be a full-fledged tutorial at some point, but again, that's something, as I mentioned in a recent dev update, tutorials are a huge resource and time sinkhole for indie developers especially. It could take weeks to properly tune and build a tutorial, and if that's something that a lot of the players end up just skipping or ignoring, it's not a great use of resources. So between the rulebook and the tutorial slides, which you can turn on and off in the options, I currently have them off. Those are meant as a bridge, as I kind of gather feedback and see what you guys are tripping up on, what might need more explanation, and then hopefully I can build out a more comprehensive tutorial of some kind in the near future of early access. All right, so yeah, check the rules. Let's play a match. Weary from running, I collapsed against the side of a rocky hill. Behind me I could hear the roars of the approaching red dragon and resigned myself to the coming doom. Suddenly the hill moved, and a massive mouth appeared, engulfing me whole. Amidst my panic I heard the dragon pass harmlessly overhead outside. Then the hill spit me out, and winked, before falling eerily silent again. Ah yes, our good friend the brown dragon. This is actually a male brown dragon, distinguished by the curved beak. You'll notice the lack of wings for the brown dragon. The brown dragon is actually the only breed that doesn't have wings. They use their magic to manipulate the earth, jumping around from column to column as they fight. And coincidentally, here's another brown dragon in the background of our board. Alright, so this is a DragonClash match. We start off by drawing the top card of our decks and comparing battle value. Battle value is the number next to the cross sword on all these cards. Battle value is used primarily to resolve combat, but it can also be used to resolve some card effects, or when you're deciding who goes first. In this case, the higher battle value wins. So I'm fighting Corlock, which is another red breather, starting off with a mirror match on this stream, and he's going to go first. So before I hit the end phase button and he does his thing, I'm just going to point out a few important things. Primarily, how do I win the game? How do I win the match? Each dragon has a dragon egg that starts in their hand. You want to capture that egg by forcing your opponent to discard or remove it from game. If it ever leaves your hand or your horde zone, this is your horde zone. I don't have any cards in it currently, but trust me, it's there. If it ever leaves either of those two zones, you lose the game immediately. You can make your opponent discard his or her dragon egg by basically through overwhelming damage. Let's take a step back here. Essence is besides the dragon egg, essence is the ultra important mechanic to remember as you're playing DragonClash. Essence includes all the cards in your deck, all the cards in your hand, all the cards in your horde. Essence is used as you take damage. You have to discard cards. As you use attacks or some card effects, you'll have to spend essence. When you move from range to range, you'll be spending essence. So just by walloping your opponent and having them take damage. They'll slowly have to discard their deck and eventually their Dragon Egg. There are also effects such as Tail Bash has an effect that forces opponents to discard cards from their hand or hoard. So you might be able to catch the Dragon Egg sooner rather than having them discard their entire deck. And there are also cards like Feast, which removes target's hoard from play. Remember I mentioned the hoard zone over here. So if my opponent happened to stick their Dragon Egg in their hoard and I played a Feast card, it'd be removed from play and I would win immediately. Alright, so that's essence, that's battle value. Let's just take a quick look at our dragon. Alright, this is an age card. Both dragons start as hatchlings. There are a bunch of attributes here, but basically these three are your attack attributes, these three are your defensive attributes, and these three are kind of your miscellaneous. The attack attributes are melee, magic, and breath. The defensive attributes are body, will, and resist. And I'll explain these a little bit more once we get to combat. The kind of miscellaneous attributes are spirit, tactics, and ability. Those also pop up here. If you have tooltips on in the option menu, you'll be able to see those. If you roll over an attack, you can see which attributes those use. In this case, Tail Bash uses my melee attribute of 1 versus my opponent's body value, which is also 1. Fire Breath uses my breath, which is currently 0, versus his resist, which is a 1. So you improve your dragon by aging and shedding your skin. Again, I'll get into that a little bit more later, but that's just an overview of what a hatchling Red Breather looks like. There are 8 age cards, so you can go from hatchling to Elder Worm in a match. Alright. I'm going to let Korlak do his thing, and I'll explain more about what's actually going on when we walk through my turn. Alright, so Korlak is attempting to claw attack. It's asking me if I want to counter or pass. It's asking me that because I do have a counter in hand. Reckless attack is a counter that when I play it, I'll draw battle value. Remember I mentioned when we draw battle value, we take the top card of our deck, and if it's the battle value on that card, the number on that card is a 1 or a 2, the attack will automatically miss. It won't even resolve the rest of combat. So it's kind of it's a risky counter. It probably won't work, but sometimes it does. The other 2 icons of importance here are the tactics value is 1, and the range value here is the range icon is a distant icon. What this means is, remember I mentioned your dragon has a tactics value. You can only use cards that have a tactics value matching your dragons. So in this case, I can only play 1 tactics value cards. I can train Tail Bash because it's a 1 tactics value. However, I cannot train Fire Breath yet because it requires a 3. So I can use Reckless right now. It's counter available to even hatchlings. And what this means is I have to be in distant or closer, in this case close range, to use it. So I can use it in one of 2 ranges, distant or close. I'm not going to use it yet because it's only a claw attack, rank 1. Let's just look at that real quick. Ranks correspond to how many instances of a card you have in play. So right now, Korlak has 1 claw attack in play, so it's a rank 1. There are other cards that might either debuff or buff a rank beyond the number of instances, but for now he's got nothing else in play. He's got 1 card claw attack in play. It's a rank 1. It costs 0 essence to use. Remember I mentioned essence is used to attack. At rank 1 it costs nothing, so it's a free to attempt, which is great. At rank 2 and above, you see it takes a little bit more essence to use, but it's still pretty cheap. Correspondingly, it doesn't do a whole ton of damage. At rank 1, it'll only do 1 damage, so I'm not going to waste a counter on that yet. I'm going to go ahead and pass. We drew battle value. He drew a 4. I drew a 2. Remember, claw attack hits my... he's attacking, so it's his melee versus my body, which is 1-1. So his total battle value total was 5, and mine was 3. If the attacker has a higher total battle value, then he hits. If it's less or tied, then the defender is able to evade the attack. In this case, he smacked me with his claw, and I had to discard a card from my deck. One card. Alright, we're going to start our turn. First phase of a turn is regain essence, which you just saw. What that means is, I mentioned you're obviously spending essence during the game. Well, you can actually regain it as well. Your dragon has a spirit value, that's this icon up here, or if you have your tooltips turned on, it's the leftmost icon. That's the spirit represents the number of cards you'll regain at the beginning of every turn, in this case 1. So I was able to cycle my the top card in my discard pile to the bottom of my deck, my game deck. There's also other ways to recover cards, either through heal cards, which I do not currently have any in hand, or during the use action phase. If you don't use your actions, you do what's called a rest, and if you have 2 actions left over that are unused, you'll actually regain 5 cards. If you only have 1 action left unused, you'll regain 2 cards. So that's how you kind of cycle cards back into your deck. And I mentioned battle value before. It's important to manage your battle value cards because you ideally want to cycle your high battle value cards back into your deck. So if you have them all in your hand, or they're in your hoard, or they're in play, they're not in your deck for you to draw. So you want to be careful about having a ton of high value cards in your hand, or in your discard pile. Ideally, you want to cycle those back in and not bury them either on the board or in your discard pile. All right, so let's say we did regain essence. Then I drew a card. It's not optional. If you have a card to draw, you have to do it. And then it's asking me about range. Now I mentioned before there are 3 ranges to actually choose from: close, distant, and safe. The numbers represent how much essence it would cost to move into that range. In this case, I'm in close already, so it costs me nothing to stay there. If I want to move to distant, it would cost me 1 essence. If I want to move to safe, it would cost me 3. Again, spending essence means you draw the cards from the top of your deck and you discard pile, and you put them in your discard pile. Since I want to use Claw Attack probably, or maybe Tail Bash, both of those have to be in close range. So I'm just going to stay there. Alright, I have 2 actions. Now I can do a couple things. I can't do Ember Breath yet. That's the first breath attack a red breather can learn, but it requires a 2 tactics, and so I need to level up my dragon a bit before I can train an Ember Breath. However, I could use Tail Bash if I wanted to. It does a lot more damage than a Claw Attack, but it's a lot more exhausting. I have to be careful about using Tail Bash at the beginning. It's really tempting because, hey, it's 4 damage. A hatchling can do 4 damage right off the bat. It sounds great, but you're using 2 essence just to attempt it, and I'm only regaining 1 a turn. So if you get a little Tail Bash crazy, it's easy to start burying cards in your discard pile that you might never be able to recover. So you got to kind of balance it out. Later you'll be recovering more essence, which will make Tail Bash a little less risky. But yeah, you don't want to exhaust yourself early. I think I'm going to go ahead, because I have a Flame Tongue and an Ember Breath in hand, which is kind of a more mid-level attack. I don't want to also train Tail Bash. You don't want to train in every attack. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. You kind of want to pick or choose. In this case, I started a match with a lot of options. You won't always have all these options. It's a card game, so there is some variance. But in this case, I have a lot of options to pick from, and I can see that I have 2 attacks coming up pretty quickly. So I'm not going to bother with Tail Bash. Instead of playing it, I will hoard it. I mentioned the Hoard Zone. Well, there it is. There's a card in the Hoard. You can have 2 cards in your Hoard, and once you have 2 cards, you'll be able to age and shed skin, and that's how you level up your dragon. In this case, from Hatchling or Age Card 1 to Age Card 2, which is a child. Alright, so I hoarded 1. I still have 1 action remaining. I'm going to go ahead and I saw this counter before. Since I'm not really going to use it yet, and it's a low battle value card, I'm going to go ahead and hoard it. I prefer to hoard low battle value cards to start because in case if Korlak has a feast card and those cards are removed, I don't want to lose high battle value cards. I'd rather lose low battle value cards. So, especially at the beginning of the game, there are 4 feast cards in the Red Breather deck and the Blue Adept deck. So the chance that I have 2 right off the bat, so that's gonna kill him. But there's also a high probability that he has at least one in his hand to start the game. So you want to be careful about what you hoard, especially at the beginning. Alright, now I can attack. I only have one to choose from, like him. I have Claw Attack. That is my melee of 1 versus his body of 1. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Cost me nothing to attempt. So we go ahead and draw battle value, and I smacked him good. I drew a 6, he only drew a 1. That's about as definitive as you can get. Our respective attack and defensive attributes didn't even really matter in that case. Alright, so it's now the end of my turn. If there are any end of turn effects, in this case there aren't any, but that would happen now. He'll be starting off his turn by also regaining an essence. In this case he's only got 1 card in his deck, so he'll be regaining Flame Tongue. That'll go to the bottom of his deck. Whenever you regain essence, you always regain cards to the bottom of your deck in order. So if he had 2 cards, if he was regaining 2 cards, the Flame Tongue would go under first, and then the following card would be at the very bottom of his game deck. Wow, we are just bloodthirsty today. We're smacking each other with our claws. Luckily, we're not doing much damage to each other. It's kind of a slap fight, but hey, a hatchling has to start somewhere, right? All right, so what you did see there is that he aged. He shed his skin. So he had 2 cards in his hoard. He spent an action to shed skin, which means he kept 1 card and he discarded the other, and he increased his age card to 2. He became a child. You see his melee. This is worth kind of like, there's a little bit of a RPG light aspect to DragonClash as you improve your dragon over time. His melee attribute went up and his tactics went up. So now he can start using attacks like Flame Tongue, Ember Breath, counters, or other cards that require tactics too. We are also going to do the same thing, so you'll see it shortly. I'm going to stay in close range because again I only have melee attacks currently. When you shed your skin, you have to choose which card you want to keep. In this case, and I'll show you this in action, the other new aspect of DragonClash, the PC game, this was an addition made for the PC game versus the tabletop actual physical card game. When you shed your skin, you get to recall, which means you get to draw back the bottommost attack card in your discard pile. So if you have 10 cards in your discard pile and the bottommost card, it takes the bottommost attack card. So you'll see that happen here. I have no cards in my discard pile, so if I choose to keep Reckless Attack, Reckless, and I shed skin with that, it's going to put Reckless back in my hand and it will discard Tail Bash. But because Tail Bash is now the bottommost attack card in my discard pile, I actually get to recall it back. And that's an addition I added in lieu of a mulligan, because you can't mulligan in DragonClash. I really don't like mulligans. I just feel like they unfairly punish you. And sometimes it's just better to start the game over than mulligan down to 6 or 5 cards. It just feels like an automatic loss half the time. So instead of that, I just thought of ways of giving you outs, other ways to potentially improve your hand just through playing. And I thought this was a good out to have. So basically, just by shedding your skin, if you don't have say you open up a hand and you didn't have any attacks in your hand, you had nothing to train. All you had was Claw Attack. Well, an option would be to willingly, or not counter and hopefully take some damage because you want to get cards in your discard pile, and just shed skin as much as possible. And as you get cards in your discard pile, hopefully some attack cards, you'll draw those back into your hand by shedding your skin, which not only improves your dragon, which will open up other options in your hand, but it will also pull cards back from your discard pile, pull attack cards specifically, which you can then use to train. So in that way, even if you open up with a really crappy hand, you can hopefully recover just by playing and just by improving your dragon. Alright, so we shed skin, so now we are also a child dragon. I have 1 action remaining. I'm going to go ahead and play my Ember Breath now that I can. It's 2 tactics. Now, I could attack with it, but my dragon is basically puffing. It's just puffing smoke at this point. He's not really well versed in his breath attack. Still learning, still choking up embers. So again, my breath attribute will improve as my dragon improves. So I could try it now, but the defender already has an advantage if all things being equal. If the attack attribute is the same as the defensive attribute, remember ties go to the defender. So really, this is a large advantage for him if I go ahead and attempt the attack, and it costs me 2 essence just to attempt. So I'm going to stick, even though this would do more damage, I'm going to stick with claw attack until I can improve my dragon a little bit more, because it's free. Okay, so now you're seeing, I mentioned some more advanced counters. Well, this is probably the Red Breather's best counter. It requires 2 tactics to use, and it has to be in close range. So say I was in distant range bombarding him with Ember Breath, he wouldn't be able to Joust at me because he can't reach me. But I am in close range, and he does have the 2 tactics, so he can play it. And on counter, when you play the card, the defender being him, inflicts 5 damage to the attacker, that's me, if my attack misses. So that's a nasty counter. 5 damage for 1 card is, that's not even an attack, is particularly nasty. And it just so happens that I did miss. So, as I hit end phase, boom, I take 5 damage. He just took a big chunk out of my neck. Alright, so I'm at end turn phase. This is the, in case if you haven't noticed, this is the phase counter. So if you're confused of where you are in a turn, this will always tell you. Max hand size begins at 7. There are some cards that can manipulate that, either dropping it significantly. Not too many cards currently in game that will increase your max hand size. But because I have 9 cards in hand, I have to discard 2. I'm going to go ahead now. Again, which cards you discard are important, and the order of cards you discard are important. So right now, say I was to discard Feast with a battle value of 5, and then Tail Bash with a battle value of 2. Well, Feast would go first, and then Tail Bash would go second, and it would be on the top of my discard pile, which means the next card I regained would be Tail Bash. So I would be cycling in a 2. If I did it in the reverse way, I would potentially, assuming I didn't take any damage, be cycling back into 5. So again, it seems like an easy decision. Oh, I'll just discard cards. But you want to be conscious of not only which cards you discard, but the order in which you discard them. The other thing to think about is, right now I have 5 cards on my discard pile. Let's look at the bottommost card is Double Jaw. It's a gift, which we haven't seen yet. I'll explain those when it comes up. So here's the bottommost attack card. It's a claw attack. So the next time I shed skin, assuming that my discard pile remains as is, I will be pulling claw attack from my discard pile into my hand. There's also a Fire Breath in my deck. So really, the next attack card I put in my discard pile, I'm probably not going to recall normally. It will probably get cycled back into my deck. So in that sense, I'll put Tail Bash first, since I'm not going to train it. And I will. It hurts me to do this, but again, I don't want to hold a lot of high value cards in my hand, and I can't train this yet, so it's just sitting here. I'm going to put it in my discard pile because I'd rather cycle it back into my deck, and maybe I can draw it again later. Okay, so he's drew a card. He's going to stick in close range. All he's got is claw attack. It's asking me if I want to burst. This is the first time we've seen burst, because burst is a tactics 2 card. So I couldn't do it before, so it didn't ask me. But basically, what burst is, it's a particularly tricky card. Not to use, but as strategy-wise, it can really open up some possibilities. Because what it does is, at the end of any select range phase, we're in select range now, you can play burst cards. You can play as many as you want. So I can, he can play one, I can play one, he can play one. We can just keep going back and forth for as long as we have burst cards. But you can basically move one range immediately for free. So in this case, if it's his turn, if I was to play a burst card, I could burst into distant range, which would prevent him from using his claw attack. Or vice versa, say I was in distant range and I had a counter, I had Jaw Snap. If you remember, Jaw Snap can only be used in close range. I could then spend a burst card to move back into close range, and so that I can then counter with my Jaw Snap. So bursts are, they don't seem like much at first glance. I could just move one range for free, big deal. They're actually huge. They're valuable cards in general, not only for moving for free, but just being in the range that you want to be to use the cards that you want to use. So I'm not going to waste it yet on Claw Attack. I have no counters. Reckless, if I wanted to use it, it can actually be used in distant range. And I actually have a Breath Attack anyway, so if I get stuck in distant range, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to pass. I'm going to save my burst card for later. That might be more useful. Alright, we're seeing our first event, which I will explain as soon as the action stops a little bit. Alright, perfect. It's asking me if I want to counter, so the game is pausing. Let's look at Sage Towers. There are event cards in each deck. Sage Towers is one event. Events are global. You can only have one event on the board at a time. So he's getting an event out that actually affects both of us. All players draw a card at the end of your end turn phase, your respective end turn phase. So at the end of his end turn, he gets to draw a card. At the end of my end turn phase, I get to draw a card. Now, I mentioned events are global. If I had an event card and I didn't like that card, I could then play an event and would discard his. So you can counter each other's events just by playing them. In this case, it's actually helpful for me, so I'm happy to let it sit there for a while. There are some events that would, for example, buff all of his attack attributes or buff all of his defensive attributes. Those you want to get rid of as soon as possible, because it just makes your life in combat that much more difficult. I'm not going to counter because, again, it's really only a level 1 claw attack. I'm going to pass. Hit. Has anyone missed yet? I haven't been keeping track. It feels like we're just clawing the heck out of each other. Alright, you see the Sage Towers just popped up. He just drew an extra card. Alright, because I took damage and I still only regained 1 essence a turn, I wasn't able to cycle in Fire Breath in yet, but hopefully it's coming. I could move into distant and spend an essence, but again, my breath is still only a 0, so I'm probably just going to stick with Claw Attack. For my actions, now this is interesting. I actually have 2 Flame Tongues now, so I could train Flame Tongue up to rank 2. This is a good time to mention ability. We haven't talked about ability yet. 1 is what my dragon's ability is currently. What ability means is how many instances of a particular card you can have in play at one time. So because my ability is only a 1, I can only have 1 Ember Breath in play at a time. I can only have 1 Flame Tongue in play. So even though I have 2 in my hand, you can't just vomit all of your Flame Tongue cards onto the board at once. You actually have to train your dragon up before you can... This prevents you from, say you lucked out and you had 4 Flame Tongue cards in your hand at once. You just can't level up to a rank 4 Flame Tongue right off the bat. You actually have to improve your dragon before you can do that. So, but that is a good option to have. I like having a solid melee option, close range option, and a solid breath attack option as a red breather. So no matter what range I'm in, I have attack options. But I also need to age, so I'm going to put 1 card in my Horde, and I'm going to go ahead and play 1 Flame Tongue. Now, because Flame Tongue uses my melee versus his body, it's the same as Claw Attack, but it does more damage, and it only costs 1 essence, so I'm going to flip-flop over to Flame Tongue. Oops, it'd help if I ended the phase first. Alright, so now I'm in attack phase. I'm going to do a rank 1 Flame Tongue. Spent 1 essence to do it. Hey, of course I mentioned misses, and my first Flame Tongue is a miss. Again, even though I had a 2 melee, 2 plus 1 is 3, and he had a 1 body, 1 plus 4 is 5. Math, right? Math. So that was a miss. Alright, Sage Towers. I just drew a heal. I mentioned before, obviously regaining essence at the beginning of every turn is a way of regaining cards. Resting, that is not using your actions, is a way of regaining cards. Heal is probably, in terms of cards, is the best way of regaining cards. You see, just by playing this, I regain a whopping 6 essence, including heal. So you discard it, and it'd be heal plus the next 5 cards would be moved to the bottom of my game deck. That also requires a 2 tactics, so I can use it now. I can use it from any range. Well, can't use it now, but I can use it on my use actions phase. I do not want to burst, but thank you for asking, so politely. Okay, he just trained his claw attack up to 2. He can do that because he just shed his skin, and now he's a young serpent, age 3. That improved not only his ability up to 2, what else did it improve? Oh, his breath is now a 1. So if he had any breath attacks, now it would equalize, since my resistance is only a 1. So now he's got 2 claw attacks. Now, when you have a rank 2, I'll show it to you when I'm actually able to do it. But at any rate, he had to spend a card to do potentially 2 damage now because it's a rank 2. I'm not going to counter it still. Good. Missed. Ooh, Inferno Breath. Love this attack. This is the ultimate Red Breather attack. Probably the most damaging breath attack in the entire game. As you can see, at rank 2, it opens up a special effect that, if assuming there are cards in the game deck, the dragon that's hit has to draw the top 5 cards, and those are removed from the game, not discarded, removed. So that's particularly nasty, on top of the immense amount of damage. Really, once you start training Inferno Breath is an endgame attack. If you have it, it's going to end the game pretty quick. Alright. It is a Tactics 4 attack, though. So you're not going to train a hatchling to Inferno Breath. That's just not going to happen. Alright. Again, we were regaining essence, so that's drawing cards back into from our discard pile back into our game deck. Drew a card. I'm going to stay in close so that I can Flame Tongue. I'm not going to burst. Alright, so I want to hoard a card. I'm going to go ahead and hoard Heal. I have 2 of them. And because I have 2 of them, and again, I prefer that my higher battle value card is in my discard pile to hopefully cycle it back in, so I'm going to do that. Now you'll see now I draw, I mentioned before, you always draw, even though I have Flame Breath, I have Tail Bash, I have another, I said Flame Breath, Fire Breath. So I have 2 Fire Breath cards in my discard pile now, and I have a Claw Attack. Claw Attack is the bottom-most attack card, so when I shed Skin, and I want to keep Reckless, so I shed Skin with that one, it drew Claw Attack from the bottom of my discard pile. So now the next time I shed Skin, I'll get a Fire Breath. Alright, now I have 2 ability, so I could play 2 Flame Tongue cards. Unfortunately, I have no actions remaining, so I have to wait until my next turn to do that. In the meantime, I'll settle for a rank 1 Flame Tongue attack. Spend 1 essence to hit him for 2. I like that math. Okay, wow. Alright, so I'm clearly the game is pushing me in a particular direction. We're just going to lick the opponent to death with our Flaming Tongue. At rank 3, Flame Tongue opens up a particularly nasty debuff. It minuses 1 to all of the opponent's attack ranks. So if the opponent only has, say the opponent had an Ember Breath of 1, and he got hit with a Flame Tongue rank 3, he would then have an Ember Breath of 0 rank, and that means you can't attempt it. You have to have at least a 1 rank in an attack to attempt it. In addition, say the opponent had Claw Attack rank 3, so now he had this additional effect opened up. Well, if I hit him with a rank 3 Flame Tongue, his rank 3 Claw Attack would then drop to 2, he'd lose his extra ability. So it's handy on a couple levels, just as a general debuff, and also preventing your opponent from using their bonus effects. I have a ton of cards in hand now, and that's because of Sage Towers. I'm basically drawing 2 cards a turn. So what do I want to get rid of? I want to keep my Flame Tongues. I'll go ahead and get rid of a Claw Attack, even though I could train it. I have options here. I really am going to be focusing on Flame Tongue now. And I'll get rid of. Then this kind of sucks because I'm basically burying my high battle value cards now. Look at that. I have a 5, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 5. When I mentioned burying cards, this is what I meant. So I'm losing cards faster than I can regain them. So these cards, except for the attacks, like Double Jaw is effectively buried now. There's no way, unless I start really healing or emphasizing healing. I get 6 back when I play a heal card. That's a good way of regaining cards. Resting. I'm just by my normal regain essence. If I was to do nothing else, I would probably never get Double Jaw back. That said, once you max out your dragon at Elder Worm, which is age rank 8, Shed Skin turns into what's called Ascend. And Ascend means you don't. When you Shed Skin, you normally get a card back and you discard a card. When you Ascend, and I'm explaining this because you don't always have this option. As I said, you can train your dragon to age rank 8, but it's not a common thing. A lot of times a game can end and your dragon might be age rank 5. So we might not see an Ascend in this match, but what Ascend does is it removes both cards from your horde. So it would move them here, it would remove them from the game. But you would draw a number of cards from the bottom of your discard pile, so that's how you would regain some of the bottom cards here. So say I had 4 cards in my hand, it would draw cards up to 10. So if I had 4 cards in my hand, it would draw 6 cards from the bottom of my discard pile, and one big giant whoosh burst of elemental energy. Now I already have 9 cards in my hand currently, so if I was to Ascend now, it would be kind of pointless because I would only get 1 card. But anyway, back to the game. So I have to discard 2 cards, and I'm currently burying my high battle value card, which I'm not thrilled about. But I really don't want to get rid of anything else, so not great. We have 3 low battle value cards right in a row now. Alright, I am not going to burst. Alright, so, wow, that was quite an active turn for him. So he has an Ember Breath now as well. Wow, it's truly a mirror match. And a Flame Tongue. And he's opting to Flame Ember Breath. It is a 1 versus 1, but luckily I had a Smoke Aura as a gift, by the way. We haven't seen any of those played in the game, but there are gifts in your deck. And that's another way to further customize your dragon during a match. Gifts are dragon independent, so I can have a gift in play, he can have a gift in play. Unlike events where they cancel each other out, each dragon can have a gift in play. And you can only have 1 gift in play, however, so if I was to play a second gift card, it would then discard the one I had in play. And I can also use rend gift cards too, which I don't think we've seen any of those yet, but you can play those to make your opponent discard a gift, or you can rend your own gift if you want to get rid of it for some reason. There are some gifts that have both positive and negative effects, so if you didn't want the negative effect any longer and you had no gift to replace it with, you can rend your own gift and get rid of it that way. Alright, Sage Towers, he draws another card. I regain 1 essence, whopping 2 battle value card. Wow. Alright, I have all these feast cards yet, and I haven't played any of them yet. I prefer to play. I just have had. This is where a lot of the strategy takes place. You only have 2 actions a turn, so you can only you can only do so much. And I prefer to only spend feast cards. I've been focusing on training, but I prefer to only spend feast cards when the opponent has 2 cards in their horde, because basically I'm trading 1 card to make them discard 2, or remove 2, not even discard them, it removes them from the game. If he only had 1 card in his horde, I'd still be making him blow an action essentially, because he would have to spend an action to replace the card he already had there. But it's just that much more value to do 2 versus the 1. So I haven't used them yet, but wow, I could really stunt his growth by actually playing these. In the meantime, I do have a 2 ability now, so I can train my Flame Tongue up to 2. Now, if he had 2 cards in his horde, I'd probably feast now, but he doesn't. I'm going to go ahead and use a heal card, because although it would also cycle back in Claw Attack and Reckless Attack, let's see, it'd be heal, Claw Attack, Reckless Attack, 2 heads, heal, and Fire Breath. So I'd also get a few high battle value cards back in my deck. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, just to kind of open up my cycling a little bit better here. So now I have at least a chance now to get to these cards before they get buried. 0 actions remaining. Alright, so I mentioned I would show you this when it came up during my turn. So now that I have a rank 2 attack, I can opt to aim strike. What this does is I can attack normally at rank 2 for 2 essence and 5 damage, or I can opt to attack for 1 rank less, in this case rank 1. And what that does is it would give me a +1 to all of my attack attributes. So Flame Tongue uses my melee attribute, so I normally have a 2 currently. If I was to aim strike, it would give me +1, so I would have a 3 melee versus his 1 body. So I'd have a pretty large attack advantage. You do less damage, but it's also a valuable tool. Say you were really low on essence in general. Say I only had a couple cards in my deck. Well, I could opt, rather than spending those couple cards, I could opt to pop down to rank 1 and only spend 1 card. So in that way I can still attack, but not necessarily at full strength. In this case, I already have the advantage, so I could just pile on the advantage, but I'm going to go ahead and be aggressive, spend 2 essence and potentially do 5 damage. And it worked. Thank you. Beware my lava tongue. I need the Silence of the Lambs Hannibal Lecter sound here. Alright, we end our turn. Alright, so you see he moved into, this is a perfect example of burst cards. So he moved now, he spent an essence to move into distant range. That's cluing me in, obviously, because he can't use Flame and Tongue and he can't use Claw Attack. He's going to attempt Ember Breath, I assume, because otherwise he can't attack. Ember Breath is his only attack that can be used in distant range. Flame Tongue and Claw Attack cannot. However, I have a Jaw Snap counter that can only be used in close range. So I can now play my burst card to move back into close range, and he can still use his Ember Breath if he wants, but now I can also Jaw Snap. Alright, and as expected, he's attempting to breathe his embery breath all over me, so I'm going to bite him in the neck. I love it. I drew Jaw Snap to resolve a Jaw Snap. It's perfect. Battle value is 6. Meant to be. Tasty. So I just did 5 damage to him because he missed. Alright. I'm going to stick in close because I want to be able to Flame Tongue. I have 2 actions remaining. Now I could feast, but he only has 1 card in his horde. The disadvantage of waiting is he's probably going to age next turn. You know, he'll spend 1 action to hoard a 2nd card, and then he'll spend his final action to shed skin. So I could stymie him right now, but I hate spending. It's just a personal preference. It's a perfectly viable strategic decision because it does give you a little bit of tempo just by slowing him down with the 1 card. But I'm greedy, and I want to get maximum value for my feast card. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and hoard. I'm going to hoard twice. I have 3 feast cards, and in case if he has a feast card, I don't want to lose my potential at rank 3 Flame Tongue. So I'm going to hoard, even though it's a battle value of 5. I'm going to go ahead and hoard that, and take the gamble that he doesn't also have a feast card. It's still a 2-to-1 advantage to me, so I will go ahead and just be aggressive and attack normally. He just used a defense counter. What that did is it increased, you see now his body value is a 2, it's 2-to-2. And this is again an example where ties go to the defender. We both drew the same battle value, we both have the same attribute value, so he's got a 4, I got a 4, a tie goes to the defender. So I just missed, so that defend card made all the difference between losing 5 cards and not. Alright, I drew Claw Attack. So now I have the potential here to also do a rank 3 Claw Attack, which is also handy. Oof. Alright, well, you just saw the kick to the gut graphic. He just played a feast card for one of his actions. What that did is it cleared my horde. He just gobbled up all the essence that was in my horde, and I now have permanently lost. I mentioned I had the potential for a 3 rank Claw Attack. Well, I just lost one of my Claw Attack cards permanently for the rest of the match, and I also lost not only a feast card, which is valuable in and of itself, but I lost a battle value 5 card for the rest of the match. So yeah, it was a gamble. In this case, came back to bite me, literally. So that, not only did I lose 2 cards, lose a potential rank 3 Claw Attack, lose a battle value 5 card, but it slowed me down. That was 2 actions I spent that essentially meant nothing. Now I have to respend, I have to spend 2 more actions just to put the cards back that were there before. So he's got a definite tempo advantage there, just from that 1 card play. I'm going to move back into close range, spend an essence to do so, because I want to use Flame Tongue. Oh, I mentioned Rend Gift. I have the Rend Gift card now. Unfortunately, there's no gifts in play for me to rend, so I'm going to go ahead and hoard that. I'll go ahead and hoard my Claw Attack card. Still a 2-to-1 advantage, so let's be aggressive. Oh, he's gonna try to Jaw Snap. Oh, nice. Okay, wow. Jaw Snap to Jaw Snap. So again, what card you draw doesn't really matter. It's the battle value. It's just funny to me that we're both drawing Jaw Snap to resolve a Jaw Snap. So I hit. Luckily, it was his Jaw Snap counter. Yeah, that he played. So if I happened to miss, he would have done 5 damage to me. Now, not only does he take 5 damage, now he takes 5 damage from my attack, and I take none from his counter. I got confused a second because all the Jaw Snap cards flying around. who was doing what there, but I made it through. I powered through it. Alright, he's moving back to distant range. He's also got a 2-rank Flame Tongue. But he didn't have that at the time he chose range, which I imagine why he, at the time he thought, maybe I'll do Ember Breath. Still 1-1. Alright, I could counter with Reckless. Still only a 1-1, so I have the advantage because ties go to me. I'm gonna go ahead and take the gamble. Perfect. Alright, so he missed. Regain an essence. I would really like to shed skin, which I will do now because I can finally start regaining 2 essence a turn instead of 1. I'm going to go into close range. I will... So, again, normally I prefer to cycle back in my high battle value cards, so I would keep Claw Attack normally. However, since I probably won't train Claw Attack up to rank 3, and I kind of want to keep Ren Gift, just in case he does play a gift, I'm going to keep Ren Gift. I recalled Fire Breath, which is great. I still have an action remaining. Hey, I finally get to eat some of his essence, because he's got 2 cards in his hoard. Let's go ahead and do that. Yum, 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 yum. Let's see what we got rid of. Excellent. So I mentioned before, events you definitely want to look out for to get rid of. One of them is Gaia's Breath. If your opponent has that in play, they get +1 to all their defensive attributes. It's particularly nasty. So now we got rid of that permanently for the rest of the match. And Slayer is another event. So he had 2 event cards in his hoard, and I got rid of them both. This one represents the human elements that are attacking both dragons in this case. We would both lose 1 essence at the end of every turn. So that will dramatically speed up the game. If it was in play, it's not though, because now it is lost forever. 0 actions remaining. Just want to make sure we're still at, yeah, okay, I still have the advantage. Fortunately, ties goes to the defender, so even though I had 2, that's 5. He had 1, that's 5. So he just got out of the way of my fiery tongue. Okay. I want to get to tactics value. I have a 2 currently. That's the middle number. I can open up my card here so you can see what my Mature Serpent, age 4, looks like now. I have 2 melee, 2 breath. Red Breathers have no magical ability whatsoever. They're all about either clawing up close or blasting you from far away with breath attacks. And they're not really that great at defense. They have basically as basic a defensive scheme as you can get, 1 across the board. I now have 2 spirit, 2 tactics, 2 ability. So having that 3 tactics would open up Fire Breath. And since I only have a 1 Ember Breath, usually I don't want to train a whole bunch of different cards, I mentioned that. But since Ember Breath just hasn't been popping up for me, you can see one right in my discard pile, coincidentally, not in my hand. Since I can't train it, I can look at other breath attack cards, and Fire Breath is a fun alternative. It's definitely a step up from Ember Breath. Costs more, does a lot more damage, and it inflicts 5 additional damage at the end of the next turn. So it's got a slow burn effect, damage over time effect. No, I don't want to discard it. Why am I discarding a card? Oh, because I'm at end turn and max hand size is again 7, and I have 8. So, oh, here we go again. Discarding low battle value cards. Not ideal, but sometimes you have to do it. Alright, I mentioned gifts. Well, he just played one. Let's look at that in a second. Alright, good. Counter pauses the game. Double Jaw is a gift. It applies only to him, and it gives him a +1 breath rating. So he had a 0 before. Oh, I'm sorry, he had a 1 before because he's a young serpent. He had a 1 before, plus the Double Jaw gives him a 2. So now he's got the distinct advantage for using his breath attacks. But not for long, because I have this fabulous Rend Gift card. Give me that Double Jaw. Do I want to counter? Now that he has the advantage, I'll go ahead and take a shot. It's not guaranteed. Again, it'll draw a battle value, and if I draw a 1 or a 2, it misses. Otherwise, it resolves normally. Let's see what we get. Okay, so I drew a 4. Reckless did nothing, so we just resolve. And of course, I draw just to rub it in. I draw the 1 I needed for Reckless to actually work. I draw it as my normal resolution battle value. So I drew a 4 to check for Reckless. Didn't work. Then we resolve the attack normally, and I draw my 1. And because even though we both drew a 1, he's got the 2 breath. That's 3 versus 2 total. So a successful hit. Alright, I'm regaining 2 essence now, not 1. Alright. I'm not close to using Fire Breath. I'm still on the Flame Tongue plan, so I need to get back into close range. I do want to start hoarding so that I can use those Fire Breath cards. I'm going to hoard 1, and then I'm going to use my Rend Gift as my second action to get rid of that Double Jaw. Thank you. So now we're back to 1-1. Let's stay aggressive with Flame Tongue. Keep licking away. Alright, I have a Sage Towers event. In this case, it does absolutely nothing. Because if I played it, it would discard his, but it affects us both anyway. It affects all players, so it does the same effect. Whether he has it or I have it, it does the exact same thing. What I do want to keep it for is if he ever replaces his own event with something more valuable. There's still that Gaia's Wrath card. I'm sorry, Gaia's Wisdom card, which does +1 to all of his attack attributes. So if you happen to play that, that's a card I would want to get rid of right away so that I could then counter his event with my own event. Or I could just discard it and get a 6 battle value card cycling back into my deck. Alright, well now he's got rank 2 Ember Breath. Horlock is a particularly aggressive AI. He doesn't use, especially with his breath attacks, he doesn't. Now, I mentioned before, you have the option at rank 2 to do an aim strike. So 1 versus 1, I technically have the advantage. He could do an aim strike, but he's intentionally programmed as an aggressive AI. He will not aim strike as much as, say, Sheen does. Sheen is the blue adept dragon you can fight. So he'll take a few more chances, and that's intentional. I wanted the dragons to have personality. If I was to program a second AI, I could easily program one that was a little bit more defensive, focused on melee attacks, perhaps preferred those versus breath attacks. It just so happens it's a mirror match, and it's become a true mirror match. We both have the exact same attacks out, but again, it's a card game. There's variance. There are tail bash attacks, inferno breath, fire breath attacks. Not every game is going to be a perfect mirror match like this, but in a way, it's helpful for this stream because it does let me focus on not having a lot of different things to focus on. I can kind of just highlight each particular attack. Alright, Smoke Aura. It's a gift. It only affects me, and it's a great card to have in a mirror match against another Red Breather because it adds +1 to my resist rating, which is coincidentally what he is up against when he does his Ember Breath, his breath attack versus my resist rating. So it basically ups my defense against breath attacks. I want to stay in close range. So now here's the strategery. I only have 2 actions. If I put Smoke Aura out now, I won't be able to shed skin, because to shed skin I have to not only hoard a card, but then spend another action to shed the skin. So I could Smoke Aura and put a second card in my hoard, but that would leave me ripe for the feast counter, and that would mean I would lose both those cards. So I prefer not to gamble that. I'm going to put Smoke Aura in my hoard. Don't panic. I know I want to use it. So I will now shed skin. You choose the card you want to keep. I want to keep Smoke Aura. I discard Tail Bash. Now, it looks like I drew the top Tail Bash card there. I didn't. The top Tail Bash card is actually still there. Hi Curtis, yes, this is my game. This is DragonClash. It is just released on Steam today, actually, so thanks for popping in and checking it out. The bottommost card was Tail Bash, so that was the one I recalled. And let's see. Cool. Cool, hey, I appreciate it. Hope you like what you see. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them. I figured I'll play this match, and probably at least one more after this. I'll play one with the Blue Adept, so you guys can see her deck in action as well. And then we'll see where we are after that. Okay, so I'm in the attack phase. I'm in close range. Still 2-to-1 advantage to me, so we're gonna stay aggressive. Rawr. Alright, well, stayed aggressive, but I missed. I did shed skin. Let's take a look at that real quick. So now I'm Elder Serpent. You'll notice just a little bit of the lore behind the game. In DragonClash, you start out as a hatchling. The Serpent ages are kind of your physical representation of your pure physical form. So the Elder Serpent is kind of the pinnacle of the physical form of the dragon. So in this case, you see the Red Breather's looking kind of old, but he's got his horns are beginning to split open. Lava is starting to drip out. Starting with Worm ages, which is next. It'll be Young Worm, Mature Worm, and Elder Worm. The dragon will really begin to fall apart. Their physical form will begin to kind of bloat or crack or just look really, really old. And their pure essence form, the pure elemental energy, will kind of burst out. So at Elder Worm, the Red Breather will be pure flame. Right now, I have the all-important 3 tactics, so now I can start training in Fire Breath. Yeah, I'll definitely have this video if you came in late, or if I know there's other streams going on with that other card game that's taking over the world, or has taken over the world with Magic. I know they're highlighting their new set today. This stream will definitely be available both after it's concluded. You can watch it again on Twitch. I'll also be up on my YouTube channel. So yeah, you can definitely catch up on it there if you want to see what you missed. Wow, it's a huge, hey, congrats to you. Rank 1 unlimited for Magic. That's great. I made it up to Mythic rank once at the beginning, and it just became, I just couldn't do it. It's just too much of a grind for me. So I tend to stick in Platinum these days. But yeah, wow, rank 1. Congrats, man. Alright, end of turn. I had to discard 2 cards. What do I want to do? Okay, wow. I have options here. I can only play 1 gift, and I have 2 that I really like. I have 2 heads here, which would give me +1 rank to all of my breath attacks. So if I have a Fire Breath and an Ember Breath, they're both breath attacks, I would have a rank 2 and a rank 2 right off the bat. Boom. I mentioned there were cards that could buff your ranks. This is one of them. So it's between, do I want to do that? Do I want to go offensive? Or do I want to go defensive? Well, I'm a Red Breather. Red Breathers are offensive by nature, so I'll probably end up going 2 heads. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to discard it though. You know what? I'm going to discard. I'm going to discard Tail Bash because I don't care about that at all. And I'm going to discard Sage Towers on top of it, so I can cycle back in Sage Towers first. And hey, thanks, man. I'm glad. Hey, I'm glad you like what you see and that you're excited to try it out. And hey, I appreciate the well wishes. I'll take all the positive vibes I can get as an indie developer. I'll have to say this: the whole journey has been nerve-wracking, but it's a huge relief to finally get it out there to the community. And I hope you guys like it. And I look forward to interacting with you guys on the Steam forums. As I mentioned in my dev post, I don't view this as the end. I view this as the beginning for DragonClash, and there'll definitely be more content and more improvements, based largely on your feedback. So, yeah, definitely check out the game and let me know what you think. I appreciate it. All right, Corlock recalled Tail Bash. Oh, you just had to one-up me, didn't you, Corlock? You nasty. Oh man. All right. Wow, that was a particularly nasty series of events. So, not only did he one-up me by playing 2 heads, I swear the game isn't necessarily normally like this. It's just funny that we happen to be playing the same cards and we're getting the same cards. But he preemptive strike with his own 2 heads, which means his Ember Breath is actually a rank 3. Did he actually hit me with a rank? He did. So this little box shows you what effects are currently in play on your dragon. So I have Sage Towers and Ember Breath, which knocked my spirit down to 0. That's interesting. Hey, early access, we found a little bug there, a display bug. It is actually a 0. For whatever reason, I'll have to take a look at it. It's actually displaying 1 on my age card. But having a spirit of 0 means that I will not regain any essence. On my regain essence phase for the next turn, which kind of sucks. It's basically like taking, well, in this case, it would have been 2 damage because I would have regained 2. So just skip my regain essence phase. And let's see. I can play Fire Breath. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to stay in distant range. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and play Fire Breath, get that out there. I'm going to go ahead and play 2 heads to get that out there. So now I have the option of either doing a rank 2 Fire Breath or a rank 2 Ember Breath. I'm going to be aggressive as well, and I'm going to go for the 9 damage 4 essence attack. Excellent. So we are at the end game here. You see what's happening. He's having to discard cards because he did not have 9 cards left in his game deck. So once you run out of cards here, you have to start discarding cards from your hand. Eventually, he will not be able to discard any more cards, and he'll have to discard his Dragon Egg, and that will be a win for us. Conversely, we are also dangerously close to the end game, so it's anybody's game, I'd say. Even though we're definitely in the lead here, we're not winning by a huge margin by any means. We only have 6 cards. We have a few more cards in hand. He's only got 1 card though, and he's regaining 2, so now he's got 3. The good thing is he's not going to be able to do a full-blown Ember Breath unless he rests. We'll see what he does. Alright, he's hoarding. Okay, he chose to hoard. I'm surprised he didn't rest there, because now he's not going to be able to Ember Breath at all. He could have chosen to do 2, but since he only had 1 card in his deck, he would have had to spend that card, discard a card, and because he would have no cards in his deck, he wouldn't be able to draw battle value. That's an automatic 0. So he would just be going in with a value of 2, which is pretty much going to be an automatic miss. So this is our opportunity to really punish him. And I intend to do so. I'm going to play a feast card. Let's get rid of these 2 cards. Let's see what they are. Stun, Claw Attack, Slayers, Gale's Breath. Alright, I have 1 action remaining. I'm going to play my second Fire Breath card. This is just pure gluttony. I don't even need it, but because I have 2 heads, now this is a rank 3. So if I was to go full bore, I would do 12 damage, which is more than enough to kill him, or make him flee rather, and win his Dragon Egg. And it would also do 5 additional damage if he were still alive at the end of his next turn. I don't even need to do that much damage. 9 will be just fine, because he's only got 4 cards in hand and 1 card in his deck. So I'm just going to do a rank 2. I'm going to aim strike just to have that +1 in my combat resolution. Smack. Boom. Victory. Tales of your bloodline grow with each conquest. Each match is played by one of your offspring. So yeah, that's a little bit of the lore behind the game too. The eggs you're protecting are your offspring. So every match you play is actually a dragon from your bloodline. So that's why it's so important to protect these eggs, because the eggs that are stolen from you, or being consumed by other dragons, that's lessens your own bloodline. So every victory brings honor to your line, but attracts powerful new enemies. Alright, so that was the Red Breather and the victory. Oh, let's look at our lair, because I have a level 3 lair. Ooh, it's glowy. Got some lava veins sprouting out. Let's see, did I get any new badges? Let's see. I think I did. I think I am now a glutton. I don't think I had this before. And then glutton just means I used feast a whole bunch. Not necessarily in that match, but in my overall game save, I've used feast. I don't want to tell you exactly how many times, but because it may change, and also because that's meant to be a secret. But I finally achieved it. I've been waiting for that to pop. Let's see. I don't think I've gotten any other new ones. Alright. It's so pretty. 15 wins. I feel good. I feel good. 12 losses, but hey, 15 wins. Let's look at the positive. I'm in the plus. I'm in the black. Alright. Well, I hope you enjoyed that first match. As I said, we're going to do a Blue Adept match now. She is a totally different dragon. There are some cards that are shared. For example, both dragons can learn Tail Bash, both dragons can learn Claw Attack, but she has her own style for sure, and her own attacks and counters as well. Let's go ahead and hatch. When I crested the hill, I was greeted by a blazing sun, encircled by storm clouds. The sun's heat drove me to my knees, and I could not help but weep for the burning in my eyes. Then the clouds parted suddenly, as if fleeing in terror. To my surprise, the sun followed upon wings of pure fire, a thunderous roar shaking the very ground in its wake. So what that little verse is describing is a silver dragon, which are the clouds, because silver dragons are of the air element, versus a red dragon, which in this case appeared like a sun. It must have been a pure elemental dragon at that point, like a big ball of flame in the sky. Clash. Alright, speaking of silver dragons, here is a silver dragon in the background of our board. This is a male silver dragon, distinctive by the mustache tendrils, as well as the pointed horns. The female silver dragons have ram horns. The male silver dragons have these giant spikes behind their heads, and the mustachios. Sometimes they even have little beards too, because why not? They're also extremely furry. If you've watched Neverending Story, there is a definite influence from that movie. Also, just generally, Asian dragons in particular. Silver dragons are just one giant, long, hairy coil. They don't have wings either, but they can fly. They're air dragons, so it'd be kind of funny if they couldn't. Anyway, enough about the silver dragons. Let's look at the blue. Oh my goodness. I think it's my stream curse. I feel like in every stream, I do mirror matches. It is totally random. It just so happens to be mirror matches again. All right, so the blue adept hatchling starts much like the red breather does, with one melee, one across the board in all of the defensive attributes, one across the board in all of the miscellaneous. In case if you missed the first match, I'll just quickly explain these again. These are my attack attributes: melee, magic, breath. These are my defensive attributes: body, will, resist. And these are my kind of miscellaneous. Spirit dictates how many cards you regain at the beginning of a turn. Tactics dictates which cards you can play or train in. And ability dictates the number of instances of a card you can have in play at a time. So I'll go over them again as we play. I don't want to, for those of you who watched the first match, I don't want to totally bore you by going over everything in as much detail, but I do want to touch upon it in case if there are new people in stream. Alright, so I go first this time, which is good. Let's look at our hand real quick. So we do have a couple of new things. We have our feast cards again. We have a Ren Gift, Tailbash, are all familiar. Gaia's Breath. We didn't get to see it played. We did see it in the last match, but it wasn't played. This is a huge defensive advantage for us. Blue Adepts in general are defensive anyway, so this just piles on that. It's going to make us very hard to hit, which is a good thing. But let's look at some of the Blue Adept specific attacks. Frost Breath is the most damaging attack available to a Blue Adept. However, the Blue Adept is named because the dragon has a little bit of everything, but is not necessarily a master of any one thing. Whereas the red breather is a breath attack specialized dragon. The blue adept has a little bit of everything, which gives you a lot of options, but conversely, it makes you a little bit watered down. So you have to be very careful with what you train. And overall, the blue adept is probably the harder dragon. If you're just starting out, I'd probably recommend the red breather just until you learn the game. The blue adept is definitely the harder dragon to master because it does offer you a lot more options and gives you a lot more ways where you can potentially sabotage yourself. Frost Breath being one of them. Because the blue adept is not great at breath attacks in general, you don't even get to learn it until your Tactics 3. The max breath attribute a blue adept can get to without gifts is +1. So unless you can train Frost Breath up to rank 3, which would open up a +1 breath rating every time you attempt it, it's probably not a great attack to train because it's going to be hard to hit with it. Even though it does a ton of damage, it does cost a decent amount to spend to attempt it, and you're probably going to miss with it. So you got to be careful with Frost Breath. Ice Blood is a really fun card to play. So the other thing, Blue Adept is defensive minded. Blue Adept is also combo minded. You saw the Red Breather was pretty straightforward. It's just let's pile on as many high damage cards as possible and just crush them, right? Well, the Blue Adept has a lot more opportunity for counters. One of those you'll see her, whereas the Inferno Breath card was probably the signature attack for the Red Breather, Taunting Breath is probably the signature attack for the Blue Adept, and that combos perfectly in with this card. Taunting Breath actually forces your opponents to discard cards, and Ice Blood, if you can get up to rank 2, will actually drop your opponent's max hand size, and it's cumulative. That's huge, which means it's permanent. It doesn't expire. So the first time you hit, much like Inferno Breath is kind of an end game card, this is an end game card for the Blue Adept. Once you start training this, if you can hit with it, it's going to end the game very quickly, because the first time you hit with it, it drops the max hand size from 7 to 4. The second time you hit with it, it drops the max hand size from 4 to 1. Yeah. So what that means is 2 hits, and basically your opponent is holding a dragon egg and nothing else in their hand at the end of their turn, unless they have it in their hoard, which is risky in its own because of the feast cards. So if you can start hitting with a bunch of Ice Blood attacks and combo that with a discard attack like Tail Bash, which lets you discard at rank 3, or Taunting Breath, which lets you discard just as its damage, you can win without having to actually, they could have 40 cards in their deck, but if they have one card in their hand and you make them discard it and it's the Dragon Egg, you win. So, and the Blue Adept has other ways of comboing attacks. There are counters that let you discard cards. There are, there's a variety of ways. We'll see. I'll stop babbling now and actually play a match so you can see. Alright, we're going to stick in close range. Right now we only have Claw Attack. I have 2 actions in play. We have a couple different options here. We have an event, Gaia's Breath. I can play that. We also have a gift. This is a Blue Adept specific gift. She can Siphon Life, which means I can spend an action every turn. I can spend an action to draw a card. And it would also give me +1 to all my attack attributes. So because the Blue Adept is not necessarily an offensive dragon, looking for ways to increase your offensive ability overall are important. So like gifts like Gaia's Wisdom, getting up to a rank 2 so that you can aim strike, siphoning life so that you can up your offensive attributes. These are all ways for you to increase your offensive capabilities, and it's going to be important because especially going against another Blue Adept, it's going to be a defensive struggle, to say the least. So now the question is, do I want to play it now and open it up to a potential Ren gift card? Because I have a Ren gift card. She could very well have a Ren gift card. I don't really need it yet, so I'm not gonna play it yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna focus on aging and shedding skin. I'm just thinking I like all of these cards, but I have to pick. So I'm gonna put Frost Breath. I mentioned I like Frost Breath. I don't necessarily like Frost Breath versus another Blue Adept. Frost Breath is going to become particularly valuable when you're playing the Brown Mauler, when he's released later in early access. Dragons you want to keep frozen away from you, or keep them in distant range if they're a high counter deck. That, like for example, the Red Breather wants to be in close range to use their Jaw Snap. Well, or if they have a bunch of melee attacks, you want to keep them away from you, or keep them in distant range so they can't use their melee and close ranged cards. But versus another Blue Adept, not super valuable, and it's going to be a while since I can use it anyway, so I'll put that in my horde. If I lose it, it sucks because I lose a 5 battle value card, but I have to make decisions here. I have a couple different attack options. I don't want to get rid of my Tail Bash yet because it's a potential discard outlet. Again, Blue Adepts are discard focused. And I don't have any Taunting Breath yet. If I had a Taunting Breath, I'd get rid of the Tail Bash, but I don't want to keep that as an option. I don't want to lose it to a potential feast. Boy. I'm going to put Ren Gift in. I only have 2 in my deck, so it would definitely suck to lose one of them. But she doesn't have any gifts in play. I gotta put something in there. So I could have also played Gaia's Breath, but again, I don't want to put it out there and get it immediately countered. I'd rather see what she does and maybe counter an event with my own. This is where a lot of the strategy is in, when to play cards. Certainly, a little bit of baiting. If I can bait out an event and then counter it with my own. Alright, so we're attacking. She's going to use a counter. Didn't even need it because she drew a higher battle value anyway. Alright, well, I mentioned I was deliberating for a long time what cards to put in my horde because I was afraid that was going to happen. She spent an action to hoard a card. She spent an action to feast. Again, if you're just joining us, feast removes the 2 cards in your horde from the game totally. So now I've lost this Frost Breath attack. I've lost my Ren Gift attack for the remainder of the match. if they were discarded, I could eventually maybe cycle them back in and draw them later. Remove from game is brutal, just from losing that. Not necessarily the Frost Breath, but I hate losing a high battle value card. And essentially, it costs me 2 actions because now I have to spend another 2 actions just replenishing my horde, and just to do what I was already doing last turn. So tempo advantage, in addition to being a kick in the gut and losing 2 cards. Aha! So we got Taunting Breath. Yes, the Blue Dragon. I love this card. I thought the Amelia did a great job capturing the spirit of the card. So basically, the Blue Dragon, the Blue Adept specifically, loves to taunt their opponents verbally, and uses her magic to just enhance it and just drive their opponent crazy. So although it does no damage, it does discard a card. Now, why the heck would you spend 4 essence to only discard 1 card, right? Like, it doesn't improve at all. Well, let's remember what Aim Strike does. Aim Strike lets you attack at 1 lesser rank for +1 offensive attribute bonus, right? So I mentioned before, finding ways to up your offensive capability is hugely important for a Blue Adept, especially when you're facing another Blue Adept. So I'm going to want to Aim Strike as much as possible. What this means is, if I can get to rank 2, there's no way I want to actually use it at rank 2, right? Because it's pointless. I'm spending double the essence for the exact same effect. What that would open up, however, is at rank 2, I could then Aim Strike rank 1 and get that +1 magic in this case to attempt the attack. At rank 3, yes, I'm spending 4 essence, but it does open up this potential additional effect, which would, if an opponent misses specifically with a melee attack, this is where comboing with a Frost Breath, I was kind of knocking a Frost Breath, but it does certainly have its advantages, and this is one of them, where if you can freeze a dragon in place and just pepper them with taunts from distant range. It is a distant range attack. I have to have 2 tactics to use it, to train with it. But if I can just taunt them, just make fun of their fur, make fun of their claw length, whatever. Their tail is kind of fat. I don't know. Whatever you imagine a blue dragon would taunt. And they're just frozen and they can't move. So not only do they have to sit there and take it, but if they don't attack me, they'll have to discard an additional card. So at rank 3, you have the potential to make the opponent discard 2 cards. And again, why would you ever want to have a rank 4 Taunting Breath? Well, specifically so you can then Aim Strike rank 3, get the +1 bonus, get the rank 3 effect bonus, and enhance fun for all. Alright. I currently have a magic of 0, so I probably will not do Taunting Breath yet. I'll stick with Claw Attack. But I am going to go ahead and train it, just to have it out there. Oh, I can't train it, because I don't have because he feasted, or she feasted on my horde last time. So I'm still only on rank 1. Blurg. Alright, so I need to go... now I can put Tail Bash in my horde, because if I lose it, at least I have another discard outlet here. I don't want to lose any of these cards to another feast, so I'm only going to horde once this turn, and I'll go ahead and play this. And you'll see now that upped all my defensive attributes. Right. Alright, good. Not good, I actually missed, but it didn't cost me anything. It's a 0 essence at rank 1, so did not cost me anything to attempt it. It's worth a shot. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm definitely being stymied from a defensive, a development standpoint, rather. That's 2 feasts in back-to-back turns. That's 3 actions now that have been blown. It's 3 cards I've lost permanently. Definitely behind the 8 ball, tempo-wise. I mentioned there's no real disadvantage to attacking with claw attack. A reason you might not want to attack with claw attack, if they have like a low battle value card here, maybe you don't want to attack and then potentially do damage and then bury that low battle value card. You might want to actually lay off them and have them cycle that low battle value card back into their deck. In this case, they had a high battle value card there anyway, I believe. I didn't actually look, but that's one reason why you might not want to attack, because just like you want to cycle your high battle value cards back into your deck, it's always good to look for opportunities to make your opponent cycle low battle value cards back into their deck, because those are cards that they'll draw later when resolving combat. Alright. Ouch. I'm still shook from all those feasting, but she's about to get a little taste of her own medicine, because boom, boom, boom. So we're about to catch up tempo-wise, because I am going to eat it up. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Yum, yum, yum. Alright, what do we get? Reckless. Oh. Alright, she lost a big card. Not only did she lose a feast card, she lost a 5 battle value card. That's a hit. Excellent. Alright, I still am stuck at Hatchling because she keeps eating all of my cards. I'm going to put a feast card in my hoard. Like, I still got another one in hand. I really don't want to lose any of those cards. It's just a case that she also has a 3rd feast card. There are 4 of them in each deck, so I just happen to be drawing feast heavy. I do want to attack. If I can bury that feast card, I can't. So she's going to regain it. Blurg. Luckily, we have a distinct advantage defensive. Wow. Holy smokes. Oh my god, I'm stuck at Hatchling. Help, stop, we're gonna be fat dragons. Oh my god, that's her 3rd feast in 3 turns. Wow. I mentioned that I like to feast with 2 cards. She sometimes feasts with 1 card. It just so happens I've been extremely unlucky. She just decided it was, I guess she just saw that the tempo boost that she had and just wanted to keep piling on. But wow, 4 cards now we've removed from the game. That sucks. All right, let me pull it back together here. Come on, Mark. We can do this. We can do this. All right. Luckily, I mean, I have a full deck here. I have nothing in my discard pile. We're not doing any damage to each other. We're still just doing pitter patter. The good thing is she doesn't have a lot of cards. She's spending a lot of cards. So if I can eventually get some of my combos going, I should have a fairly easy time of it. Oblivion's Call. It's an event, and that drops maximum hand size down to 4. You want to be careful, because while that's great, right now it wouldn't do anything because she only has 3 cards in hand anyway. So it's kind of pointless for me to play it. It would also replace my own event. I don't want to do that. It also does not combo well with Ice Blood. So if you plan on using Ice Blood, you probably don't want to play the Oblivion's Call, or you want to get rid of Oblivion's Call once you start playing Ice Blood, because Oblivion's Call will flat out, it just sets maximum hand size. It doesn't say, it doesn't say drop it or add it or minus. It just maximum hand size is 4 all the time. So it overrides whatever Ice Blood's doing, which is just -3. So if I was to drop maximum hand size down to 1 and I had an Oblivion's Call out, it would be a 4. It would override Ice Blood. So you want to be careful. These don't play well together. Alright, so I want to stick in close range. I'm tempted just for pure vengeance to feast on her one card, but again, I like to be greedy and go for maximum value. So I am not going to do it. Instead, I'm going to hoard. She can't possibly have 4 hoard cards, right? I mean, 4 feast cards, right? Right? Are you with me? No, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out together. Jeez. You know, I think I'm going to go ahead and play Siphon Life, just because I've lost so many cards now that I want to use. Gosh, it's just gonna. It's a balance because yeah, it would kind of start replenishing my hand a little bit, but it would just put me further and further behind tempo wise to do it. So these are the kinds of strategic decisions that you're going to be hit with, and it adds up. Might not seem like much in one turn. It's just one action, but those actions, they add up. They add up. All right. Can I please? Can I get past a turn without getting feasted on? Sheen, you nasty girl, be nice. You've eaten enough. Oh. All right. Well, hey, it wasn't on the plus side. It was not a feast. On the downside, it was a perhaps just as crushing event counter. So I mentioned in the first match, events are global. You can only have one event in play on either side of the board at a time. So she played Gaia's Breath. It only affects her, and it countered mine. So not only, talk about a swing, not only did I lose my defensive bonus, but she gained a defensive bonus. So and now it's back to 1-1 on her claw attack, and it's 1-2 on my claw attack. Oh boy, this match is not looking as promising as the last one. We are off to a rough start. That shapes up things a little bit better. So having those 2 Taunting Breath in play will then enable me to aim strike, which I'll need because currently you see I have a 0 magic and her willpower is 2. That is a perhaps insurmountable defensive advantage for her. Even if I aim strike, I'll only have a 1. So I need to not only aim strike, Taunting Breath, but I need to train my dragon up because I need to get my magic ability up naturally, so that and hopefully get this Gaia's Breath off the board. All right, let me stay in close. I'm going to hoard. I could also Siphon Life once I have Taunting Breath in play too, and that will help. That'll give me a little offensive jolt as well. I'm going to. Now this is interesting. I could have opted not. I'm not going to do it now because I put a Taunting Breath in, but I could have opted to keep Oblivion's Call just to counter Gaia's Breath. Actually, that might have been a better move. I have lots of options here now that I look at it because she has 2 cards in her hoard. Feasting would be great here. Countering that Gaia's Breath would have been great. My first instinct was just, let's shed skin. Let's get out of hatchling age because I've been stuck here for so long. But now that I look at it, there were a lot of options. In fact, I could still feast here. She's already played 3. She's only 4 in her deck. I mean, she cycled some back in, but they're at the bottom. So, unless she drew her 4th feast card, I should be okay a turn. I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to risk it. Just to put us back on an even level tempo-wise. Now we both lost 4 cards. She lost a Tail Bash. She lost a Bitter Chomp as one of the Blue Adept's counters. Not only is it a 6 battle value card, huge, but it's, I mentioned before, the Blue Adept had counters that she could combo with her other attacks. This is one of them. This is a good way of discarding cards on the opponent's turn, and then turning around and discarding cards on your turn through Taunting Breath or Tail Bash. I should also mention that Feast is a great combo with the Blue Adept because Feast removes cards from her hoard, which means when you discard cards, say she had cards in her hoard and her hand, I could choose what zone she would have to discard out of, and she would get to choose which card to discard, but I get to choose the zone. However, if I feasted, I could not only wipe the cards from her hoard, that would then force her to discard a card from her hand. So it would be a huge swing for me, just discard-wise, getting rid of cards. Alright, so I have 0 actions remaining. Let's keep plugging away with Claw Attack. Alright, well, I talked about it at the beginning of the game. That was the risk of playing your gift out early. We don't necessarily perhaps need it. I thought I was going to use it, but then other things came up, so I didn't even get to use it. And I got Rent gifted. So she Rent gift and discarded my Siphon Life. It looks like she then rested for her second action, which is not surprising. She only has 2 cards in hand. I am a discard-focused dragon, so she doesn't want to get, getting down to that last card is dangerous when you're playing a Blue Adept, because you never know. I could hit her with a Bitter Chomp, and she would have to discard her Dragon Egg. So keeping 2 cards in hand protects your Dragon Egg from discard effects. So I'm not too surprised she rested, and that's how she regained those last cards from her discard pile. Again, the strategy is not only what cards to play, but when to play them. And knowing who your opponent is, and protecting that Dragon Egg at all costs. Alright, well, now, again, I have the option of either keeping Oblivion's Call and making her discard her Gaia's Breath, because that's really all it would do. Max hand size 4 means nothing at this point. I have 4 cards in my hand, she only has 2. But I think I want to keep the opportunity. Oh, you know what? Total brain fart there. I forgot I could recall attacks. What I should have done there, hey, even the developer makes mistakes. What I should have done there is I should have kept Oblivion's Call. It would have discarded Taunting Breath, and then I would have recalled Taunting Breath. Or would I have? Let me see if it was the bottom. Yeah, it was the only attack. It would have been the only attack in my discard pile, so I would have basically gotten to keep both of those cards, and then I could have played Oblivion's Call to counter her Gaia's Breath. So that was definitely a misplay, huge misplay. Hey, learn from my mistakes. Alright, there's no point, in my opinion, no point in even attempting this. Yeah, it only costs 1 essence, but with a +2 advantage, I'm gonna hold back. I really want to get up to, again, for those just joining us or who might be tuning in to the stream a little late, I didn't see the first match. Your dragon's ability, which is this icon, dictates how many instances of a card I can have in play. So even though I have 2 Taunting Breaths, I can't just dump them all on the board at the same time. I have to train my dragon up to a 2 ability so that I can then play this second Taunting Breath. Alright, I'm not going to bother countering. I only have 4 cards in hand anyway. I need those to hoard. And it's only a rank 1 claw attack. Not very dangerous. Alright. I'm not going to burst. You haven't seen me. Now this is an option. Not an option I necessarily recommend, but in a pinch it is an option. You can hoard your Dragon Egg. That's extremely dangerous because if they have a feast card or any other way of making you discard a card in your discard pile, in your hoard rather, and you only have one in your hoard, and it's the egg, whether it's removed or discarded, you lose the game immediately. So it's a risk to put it in here. Sometimes it can be a calculated risk. For example, I know she's already played 3 of her feast cards. They're probably still, in the bottom half of her deck somewhere. She does still have. Actually, does she have one, or did we get rid of it? We got rid of it. So she probably doesn't have any feast cards coming up anytime soon, which means I only have to worry about discard effects, and she doesn't have any of those in play either. So I could choose to hoard my egg in a pinch. I'm not going to do it though. I'm just showing that it's an option. Alright, well, you can see this is kind of a slow bleed match. It was a lot of, really it's more of a developmental battle at this point than an actual physically combat battle, because we're both kind of doing a pitter patter with our claw attacks, but the more damage has been done with the feast cards. That's really where you're not seeing it here, but tempo wise we've both been stymied, and card wise, losing these cards could hurt us later. So it's a slower paced match, but stuff is definitely happening, and it's going to have the cumulative effects. This is great. This is excellent. If we can get our cards trained up, let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and keep a burst. Oh no, hold on. Keep a burst. Discard, defend. I want to keep that option open just in case if I want to burst back into close range later. If I get a counter like Bitter Chomp, which can only be used in close range. There's also another counter called Constrict, which is a Tactics 3 counter, but again, that's discard focused, so it's a good combo to have since I seem to be Taunting Breath focused. I now have a 2 ability. I can play 2 Taunting Breaths. I can now, even better. So I'm a age 3 Young Serpent now. So at this point, I also have +1 magic naturally. So +1 magic, I can aim strike for another +1, which gets me at least 2-2. It's at least even par. It's still a slight advantage to her, but that's something I can live with, especially for 1 essence. So, and she only has 3 cards, so it's worth it. It's worth a shot. So we're going to aim strike. That means I do a rank 1. It only costs me 1 essence, and if I hit, she'll have to discard one of the cards from her hand. Of course, it's 2-2, but we both drew the same value, same card, and tides go to the defender. So I missed. Barely, but it's still a miss. Excuse me. I could burst. I'm not going to. There's no reason for me to burst. Might as well just keep the card. Which is good, because now she has her own Taunting Breath. So now this is a good opportunity to highlight, if I had a Bitter Chomp card here, or a Feast card, anything in the combo with my Taunting Breath, it would have been perfect here. If I had a Bitter Chomp, I could have played that, and if she had missed, she didn't, she hit me of course, but if she had missed, just kind of illustrate some of the combos and strategies behind the combos. If I had a Bitter Chomp card and she missed, I could then choose Hoard or Hand as a zone, and she would have to discard a card. In this case, I normally would choose Hoard, because losing a card is not only the loss of the card, but it also, in the case of a Hoard, is loss of an action, because she has to then use an action just to get back to where she was before. So it's a tempo advantage to discard from a Hoard. However, in this case, her only having 2 cards in hand, her egg is probably here. It could be here, but it's probably here. I can make her discard a card with Bitter Chomp, and then follow it up on my turn with a Taunting Breath. She only had 1 card in hand. If I could then hit with Taunting Breath, I could win the game, even though she has 50 cards left in her game deck. Practically full health. minus the 4 cards that have been removed from game, I could win the game instantly just through discard effects. However, I didn't have a counter, so in this case, I will be Taunting Breath, and I will be focusing on the Horde, because I suspect she's protecting her egg here with that extra card. We both have Taunting Breath. I have no counters. It might be worth, you know what, I'm going to move the distant. I did that because it could bait out a burst card if she wanted to stay in close range for some reason. I doubt she would, but I might have baited out a burst card and then she would only have 1 card in hand. Or, I don't know if she has a counter. Again, I doubt she would use a counter because it would open her up to Taunting Breath. But it only costs me a card to move there, so it's worth it. All right, 2 actions. I can't put my 3rd Taunting Breath down because my ability is only a 2. I can't play Ice Blood because it's a Tactics 3, and my Tactics is only a 2. Again, this is Tactics. This is ability. If you have the tooltips turned on, which I do, you can also see that by rolling over your dragon, so you don't have to keep clicking into the H card. So I think my best option at this point is just to keep plugging away and hoarding cards. I am going to go ahead and attempt to aim strike with my Taunting Breath. Oof. Not having a huge amount of luck so far with that. My taunts are lacking. My mama jokes are just not up to par. I have to practice. Alright, she moved back into close range. Not sure why. She's got planned. Oh, okay. Probably because she only has, it's even, which is a slight advantage to me. She doesn't have any ability to aim strike with it, so it would just be a flat 1/1. Again, I think I mentioned before, Sheen is definitely a more defensive-minded AI. Corlock is more offensive-minded, so when in doubt, Sheen will probably, she chose to, even though it's a 1 to 2, it's still a free attempt, so it's worth it to just use, not spend the essence. It's debatable at this point. Maybe taking the chance of Taunting Breath with only 5 cards would have been worth it, but she opted not to. Either way, it probably wouldn't have. Okay, this is great. Unfortunately, she's got 4 cards back in her hand because she shed skin. But I'm definitely keeping this to combo with Taunting Breath, so we can do exactly what I mentioned before. If I can get her down, if I can bait her into hoarding cards and getting her hand size down to 2 again, we have a chance to win outright right now. So I definitely want to stay in close range. I definitely want to keep my burst card to make sure I can stay in close range, because if she moves into distant for whatever reason next turn, I can then burst back into close. I now have, that's good, I have 2 spirits, so I'm regaining 2 cards a turn. Oh, you know what? When I said it was in the first match I mentioned there was a display error, I was looking at the wrong symbol. Hey, my second brain fart on the stream. Yeah, I was looking at the resist symbol, which is also a swirly symbol, but it's purple as opposed to green. So yeah, I got confused there. Dev fails. Okay. Back to the action here. So maybe it wasn't a bug. Yay me. It was just a dev needs more coffee. Okay, so we're back at actions. So I shed skin. I'm probably just going to go ahead and I still don't have a 3 tactics or a 3 ability, so these cards are dead in hand. I'm going to go ahead and hoard my Frost Breath. I'm going to keep plugging away. Try to hit with Taunting Breath here. Finally. Alright. So, now she's going to be down to 3 cards. Excellent. She'll draw another card, of course, next turn and be back up to 4, but that's fine. Sorry, I got a bit of a frog in my throat here. Alright, she's staying in close, so I don't need to burst. Please hoard cards. Hoard cards. Yes? Yes. Okay, it's exactly what we wanted to happen. Because now I'm going to counter with Bitter Chomp. If I can make her miss, and let's see, and the chances are good, because I do have the advantage, it's 1 to 2, then normally I would pick Hoard. In this case, I'm going to pick Hand. Yes, perfect. Okay. So I have the option, you'll see it pop up. I can choose Hoard, which I would normally choose, or Hand. I don't know for sure, but I think her egg is here. She could have taken the chance to put it there, but I think it's there. So I'm going to make her discard a card from Hand. Now, if I can hit this turn, I'm going to get out of counter. I'm not going to burst. I could have bursted to move there for free, but again, it's 1 essence. I have a ton left. This is not where the game is going to be lost at this point. This is where the game is going to be lost, right here. So I can kind of spend my essence more freely in this match. Not always the case, but as I mentioned, this has kind of been a defensive struggle and a more developmental. Let me see if I can actually speak correctly. Struggle rather than a combat struggle. Alright, 2 actions. I'm going to go ahead and I can't play my 3rd Taunting Breath, so I'm going to go ahead and let's get that Frost Breath back in my deck. Or in my... Oh, well. As I said, I could have kept... if I had another attack card there, I've been kind of blanking out on the recall aspect. But in that sense, I actually went back to my hand, which is just fine too. It protects my egg. I thought I might have another one at the bottom, but I didn't. That was actually the only attack card in my discard pile. And again, whenever you shed skin, you recall the bottommost attack card in your discard pile. Now I'm Elder Serpent. I'm at the top, the epitome of my physical form. Aren't I beautiful? It's my glistening scales and mane, seaweed mane. The female blue dragons have the head flaps. Males don't have those. I love this picture by Adam. I thought he did an awesome job with this one. Alright. No actions left. Let's try to win the game. Let's do it. Now, the chances are, even with aim strike, it's still me a slight advantage to her. But let's go for it. Yes, I think we have just won. If this is her egg, is it? Yes, it was. Excellent. All right, victory. Your rise towards becoming the last kin continues. That is the ultimate goal of the game. I'm hoping later in early access there will be a story mode, and that will kind of, the quick matches, you get glimpses of the lore through the cards, of course, but I'm hoping to do a story mode to kind of tie in those boss fights, tie in some of these quick matches that you're doing, and really highlight some more of the lore behind the game. And the ultimate goal would be, of course, to become the last kin, which is the heir apparent to Gaia's, kind of Gaia's guardian, Gaia's chosen guardian. And I won't spoil the final boss, of course, but fun to be had, hopefully. So anyway, that will be later in early access. A match may be completed in a single sitting, but it actually depicts moments from many battles versus a rival over your dragon's lifetime. So I mentioned in the last match that the eggs that you are protecting and that you are grabbing from other dragons, those actually represent your own brood, your lineage. So every match is another one of your bloodline, and that particular match is actually, because a dragon doesn't actually age from hatchling to elder worm in the span of 20 minutes or a half hour or however long it's taken us to play this match. It depicts, your dragon is fighting other dragons over the course of its lifetime. So Sheen is a particular rival that your dragon faces, or one of Sheen's bloodline in this instance, that your dragon faces over its lifetime. So you might fight a little bit. One of you might flee. In this case, she fled, and then I might fight her again later, and that will be another. It's kind of a way of explaining a little bit of the lore. It's a card game, so you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but that's what's going on here. The eggs represent your bloodline. A match represents kind of a lifelong struggle against a particular rival, in this case, Sheen. All right, so we've played a red breather. We've played a blue adept. Let's take a look at her there. I only have 11 wins there, so I only have a level 2 with her. I don't think I got any new badges, but we will check it out. Nope, I don't see any new ones. But I am 1 win closer. Again, at every 5 wins, you level a layer. So in this case, I need to get to 15 to get to level 3. I am 1 win closer to facing the boss, which I'm not going to highlight on this stream because I want to keep it a secret. Maybe I'll do it in a different stream. I did do it on a past stream, so if you really, really want to see the boss fight, it is in one of my past streams. But I don't want to spoil it for people, especially this is the first day of release. I want people to go in and experience that for themselves, because it does have a few different mechanics, a few special abilities that are unique to that match. So I'll save that for you guys to explore. Anyway, that is DragonClash currently, and again, it's in early access. It released today on Steam, and I hope you enjoyed watching these 2 matches. And if you like what you saw, and if you did, please go and grab the game and join the community on the Steam forums. I'll be visiting there regularly, and if you have feedback or bug reports, please do share them, and I'll be tracking all that and responding to as much as I can. And I really want to engage the community and find out what you guys are having trouble with, what you don't like, because it will not only allow me to add features for everyone to enjoy, content for everyone to enjoy, but also just as a means to polish up the UI. Those tooltips you saw in game were a direct addition based on some early feedback I got from a player, actually a backer of the physical card game, that just saw on the video that maybe clicking down into the age card wasn't, maybe tiresome over the course of a match, and thought that maybe a quick glance of what your dragon stats would be helpful. So I took that and I agreed. I thought that was some good feedback, and I added that little bit of UI in just to make everyone's life a little easier. So it's things like that that can certainly change. Everything here, the game is released, but nothing is necessarily final. Artwork could change. If depending on the level of support, maybe I can get some breed-specific artwork in at some point, so that the Blue Adept's Tail Bash card is different than the Red Breather's Tail Bash card. Although primarily I'll be looking at new content first before I look at kind of revisiting current content and expanding that. But yeah, so look in early access, as I mentioned at the beginning, you have your Red Breather deck, you have your Blue Adept deck, Silver Channeler, and a Brown Mauler. Will be coming later in early access. It'll be one of the Silver Channeler will probably be the first major content update, followed closely by the Brown Mauler. They won't be released together because it's a pretty decent chunk of development time, balancing time, testing time, and I want to make sure that in terms of individual testing, of course, that it's as bug-free as possible. But also, I want to release it, let you guys play it against these other 2 decks, which are, I think are fairly balanced at this point. But, if you guys have feedback on that, I'm more than willing to listen. And then that'll help me make sure that he's balanced, and then we'll do the same with the Brown Mauler. Because the physical card game was out, there are some pretty significant changes and balance tweaks between the physical card game, which released 5 years ago, and this game. So yeah, there'll be more dragons, these two specifically. Will they be more than this? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. We'll see. Definitely these two. And there'll definitely be more bosses, at least one more, preferably many more, especially if I can get the story mode in here. Because, as I mentioned at the beginning, the Crone is definitely not the only major personality in the game. There are plenty more, and plenty of fun to be had, interesting mechanics, including the human element. Really the only, in terms of lore, the only card that explores the struggle between dragons and humans is that Slayers event. But they're definitely out there, and some are allies, some are enemies. And so, having a boss fight between you and the human military, for example, is not out of the question, and is actually something I'm looking at. Whether that will be the next boss fight, I don't know yet. I think it probably will not be. I don't know if the next boss fight will be against one of the Blue Dragon personalities, or perhaps one of the Silver Dragon personalities. I haven't decided yet. That might be something I actually bring to the community. Maybe I'll list a few different boss fight options and let you guys vote on which ones you'd like to see next. That might be a good idea. Anyway, first we'll get through release day together. We will pray that there are no game-breaking bugs, and so far I made it through 2 matches and I didn't see any bugs, so that's good. Knock on wood. But once the game kind of settles, people kind of get their feet wet with it. We get past the initial, what the heck does this do phase, and people are trying to figure out what all the different mechanics are. We'll start to look at next steps. And yeah, roping you guys into that, including you guys in those decisions, is something I would definitely love to do. So, as I said, currently we have the 2 dragons, their respective layers, the badges, and the repeatable boss fight. And the Crone will pop up after every 3 wins. We've won twice today. She could be the next match, or she could be the match after my next win. But in case she's the next match, I don't want to spoil it for you guys. So I'm going to stop here. And again, thank you guys for joining the stream and taking a look at DragonClash. Have a good one.